Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Overcoming Depression and Anxiety, brought to you by Healthy Me Summits. I'm Joanna Rushton, your host, and we're being joined here today by Reed Davis. Reed is the founder of the Functional Diagnostic Nutrition Certification course. He's known as one of the most successful and experienced clinicians in the world, having provided functional lab assessments to over 10,000 clients for hormone, adrenal, digestive, immune, and detoxification issues, as well as infectious infestation and food sensitivities and chronic stress-related problems. Reed, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here, Joanna. If there's anything I can do to help you or the summit or any listeners out there, I'm sure we'll figure it out, and I'm happy to do it.
Well, thank you for your enthusiasm and and for your energy that you're putting into helping us to get the word out there. And for our chat today, Reed, there's I think a big part of helping people on the process of overcoming depression and anxiety is to build their awareness for the sort of diagnostics that are available to them, to actually help them understand a baseline for what their biochemistry is doing, and help them navigate appropriate solutions that don't always have to be involving a drug or a pill. And so I think probably the best place to start, Reed, is maybe for those that haven't heard about you or come across your certification course, can you tell us just a little bit about your history in well-being and in your nutritional background?
Yes, I'd be happy to, and thank you. And again, I really would like to help as many people as possible. We have an equal mission there. And I came to the health and wellness field out of environmental law field. So I was working with the environment, and from a legal perspective, I'm a very good researcher and writer back then. And I decided, instead of the birds and the trees and the water and the air, which is important, that really turned my attention to what's this doing to people. And so it's amazing how when I went through that initial discovery, how, let's just say, ill or unhappy or dysfunctional people can get in this world of ours. And so I started running laboratory work almost immediately. I had a very brief period studying nutrition where I was trying to treat things with supplements, and I was finding out that wasn't working for me. So I was a nutritionist working in a clinic, selling a lot of supplements, and very quickly found out I didn't like that direction at all. And so I started running these lab works. Now, I am a pretty good hard worker, and I ran a lot of labs on a lot of people. And so this is 15, 16 years later now. I've made a lot of discoveries. I've made a lot of my own observations about who gets better and who doesn't. And it should be no surprise to your listeners, those people who are willing to dig a little deeper beyond just the symptoms, what's happening at the surface, if they're willing to look a little bit deeper, it's amazing what might open up to you in terms of healing opportunities. So we know we need to heal. We need to heal the planet. I spent a long time in that business. We need to heal ourselves first, and then we can take care of everything and everybody else. And so we've got to heal ourselves first. And, again, my claim to fame is that I ran more labs than anyone else. And, I was being told that that I was keeping track by the labs and some of the companies that I deal with. They said, "Who the heck are you? You're doing more business than any 5 or 6 doctors combined." And I wasn't even a physician. I was just a clinical nutritionist helper dude. That's what we call it here in California. So that's my background. I've just run more labs than anybody else. I've seen what comes up, and I've given people completely holistic, natural protocols to follow. And, again, in the beginning, some would try this and try that, but I actually have developed a system that's pretty effective. And now I have 2,000 students all over the world, or graduates, that have gone through my program.
Well, then, Reed, can we really just take a look at, in that case, you've run thousands and thousands of labs over the years, and you've had test results and being able to make comparisons. You've really had the numbers to be able to really start to highlight what the most common or dominant, what the key dominators are, if you like, of especially within the hormone profile of an individual. So can we maybe delve into what that looks like, what you've seen to be the common profiles of the hormonal imbalances for those that are suffering from depression?
Yeah, that's a great question. And hormones are a key factor. For one thing, and most people probably know this, stress, which is the environment, it's how you think, it's lots of factors. There's lots of kinds of stress. I pretty much say anything that affects the way your body functions, including your mind, can be stressful. Anything that negatively affects you, from wherever it's coming from. And then we're each uniquely designed to handle those stressors. And so life is kind of a balance of all these stressors. I actually call them, this is something people might want to jot down, I call those contributors to metabolic chaos. There's just all these things, again, in the environment, what you eat and the air you breathe and what you're drinking, and then even the way you think about things. And then there's the parasites, bacteria, funguses, viruses. There's food sensitivities. There's just so much. And I've run all the labs on all that stuff on thousands of people. So all of these things simply contribute to metabolic chaos. And in that chaos, I've learned how to sort of start pulling that apart. And I'm glad you mentioned hormones, because that's where I usually start. So we run a saliva test. It's easy to measure the cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone, DHEA, which is your master sex hormone, and then the metabolites. You can measure estrogen and testosterone and progesterone and things. So I've run thousands and thousands of those labs on lots of people. And I'm talking men, women, not children, because we don't really run those on kids, but, so we start to see the effects on paper of stress and your unique ability to resist and then eventually sort of break down. There's this, you can only take so much. And by the way, I need to mention that there are other markers of how stress has affected your body too. So we're just going to, right now, as you asked me to, just look at the saliva and the hormones, but we can also look at urine and markers there and other things. You can see stress on paper and then go back to that unique individual person and correlate. So that way, we're never treating the test results, which is what modern medicine does. We're treating that person, or really educating them so that they can treat themselves. It's really a self-treatment guideline or protocol that we would recommend. So, I've noticed some patterns, as you might have guessed. And it's amazing how all these different stressors can start to beat you up, and your cortisol, which is the stress hormone, it's going to start going up and down and causing blood sugar problems, for instance. Well, you can get very depressed and moody and irritable, cranky, for no apparent reason other than that your hormones are fluctuating, your blood sugar levels will also fluctuate, and you're going to, want to treat that. You're going to want to probably take I need something to make me feel better. So we do get kind of hooked on that, take this for that approach. Now, over the years, I've come up with a different approach that says, hey, we don't want to just treat the paper. Well, for instance, if your testosterone's low, well, you can just slap some testosterone gel under your arms or on your butt, who knows. Or same thing with estrogen. It could be too high or too low. You can treat the paper, or you can start looking at what caused it to go that way. Mm-hmm. Start looking at the types of stress and how you're going to sort those out. Now, I'm not an authority on mental emotional issues, but I've looked at the paperwork, and I have run lots of other, and I've found that there are a lot of hidden things you don't even know are, affecting you They certainly are. Again, I get into the hormones, the immune system, digestion and assimilation, detoxification and how well your body's purifying itself, the way your body makes energy, where diet would be very important, and then how your body responds to that. The nervous system, of course. So, I don't want to get too complex or too far out there. I want to address maybe some more specific questions you have about hormones. But, it's in there, and it's one of the first places you look when someone isn't happy. Like, if there's something about the way you look or the way you feel that's not right, there's something going on, and we can take a look.
So what I'm already hearing is that, the most common imbalances that start to show up hormonally with people with chronic depression, for example, are elevated cortisol levels, probably adrenal glands that are either in stage 1, 2, or 3, adrenal fatigue. I'm starting to hear that blood sugar regulation and insulin levels are, a big issue there.
Critical.
Yeah. Can we? I want to address two things here. Number one, for people to understand, why hormones are so important in the body and what their role is. But before we do that, I'm also curious. You mentioned before that you do a saliva test for hormone profiles. Is there any reason why is a saliva test more effective or more definitive than a blood test? Just out of curiosity.
Well, the real answer is it depends why you're measuring the hormones. Now, we measure them just because we want to know what's available and active in the body. So by the time the hormones hit saliva, it's been fully metabolized. It's the usable levels, if you will. And it gives us a guideline and a marker to use. But, other practitioners, physicians, for instance, they like using blood because they're going to look just at the general level, decide if it's low or high, and then they're going to want to, fill in the missing amount. They think, oh, we need to keep you up here. So, they use it to titrate medication. So they have a different purpose. Therefore, they would use saliva is not good for a hormone replacement therapy. You'd never find anyone doing true hormone replacement, which is just, here, it's low. We're going to give you some to raise it up. And then we're going to keep monitoring you to make sure we keep it in a certain range, because they're treating the paper, in my opinion. Now, what I want to do is find out what has metabolized through into the saliva. So that's what's bioavailable. And then I want to find out, any problems you have in metabolic processes. Remember I said metabolic chaos? Because there's all kinds of things that would influence how your body metabolizes those hormones, and that's what we're looking at in the saliva. So I can see a lot more problems, things that are really going on, because I'm looking for the real answer to what's wrong, rather than just, you're here, we think you should be here, and then so here, we fill up the tank, so to speak, here's your injections or creams or pills or whatever the heck it is. So they're really just trading the paper and hoping you're happy. And I'm trying to fix you, which is a completely different process. So that's why I use saliva. Now you can also use urine, but let's not go there now. And just say that you mentioned the adrenal glands, of course. Well, cortisol, your stress hormone, or one of them, is made in the adrenals. And so you might think that if the cortisol is high from high stress, that's a normal response to stress. And indeed it may be, and usually is. And what is cortisol's job? To raise blood sugar. So when you're under stress, if you get cut off in traffic or you have to do something fast, and so we have the stress response, anything, your blood sugar will go up because you need strength, you need speed, you need whatever it might be. You need to have some blood sugar in your brain, things like that. Now other hormones go up with it, adrenaline, or norepinephrine, these other things. Also your heart rate would increase, your blood pressure would go up, things. That's the stress response. We call it fight flight. And so you wouldn't want to be in that all the time, would you? And yet we find people whose blood sugar's too high and their cortisol and adrenaline are too high and their blood pressures. You look at the number of people on blood pressure medication, for instance, or their heart rate's up. If they're not a good exerciser, their heart goes up too high. You need to have a good, strong, slow beating heart. That's the right thing. So it's beating like a little bird all the time. And no wonder people are sick. So again, here's just another sort of example of if your blood pressure's high, you can take medication to slow your heart rate down or reduce contractility of how hard it's pumping. You can take, or you can find out, hey, why the heck is my blood pressure so high? It could be a renal problem, kidneys, the liver. It could be a lot of different things, including just stress. So we really want to look at causal factors and then get people on the lifestyle behavior patterns. Just teach them what they need to know to deal with the problem instead of just patching it up. So and believe me, I could sell a lot of supplements that will sort of do the same thing as medication, but people prefer supplements because they're less toxic and they're cheaper and you don't have to see a doctor to get them. And, but you know what? You're actually just doing the same thing. You're just treating the symptom with most supplements. Not saying I don't use them for stuff, but we don't want to take that allopathic approach. Take this for that. It doesn't really help people in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And having coached, hundreds of people over the years within health and wellness, it's when we decide to really address the cause and what that root cause is that we actually get sustainable, lasting results. And until then, that as you say, that allopathic approach of this for that is a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid approach. And it is never, it's never going to transform your life for the better.
Yeah, and sure. Let's give a quick nod to Band-Aids because sometimes they're helpful. It's like if you break an arm, and the bone is sticking out of the skin, you don't call your nutritionist. You go get a big Band-Aid. Let's give a nod to Band-Aids, but recognize them for what they are.
Exactly. And that's a good point there also is to recognize that even pharmaceutical antidepressants, they play a role, and if they can help to bridge the gap between somebody's state of despair into being able to balance their biochemistry so that they can start making healthier decisions and start, a thinking process that is more life affirmative to them and starting to make choices that are going to be, supportive across the various areas of their life that are causing the depression in the first place, then absolutely that plays a role. It's, as we know, it's when we become dependent on those forms of mood regulators and biochemical, balancing agents that when we become reliant on them, that nothing really changes in our life. We don't really address what's creating the problem in the first place. And as you would know better than anyone, taking those sort of forms of medication over a long period only create further imbalances in the body. So,
yeah, absolutely. And it's pretty true with most medication. Again, it's fine. I agree with you wholeheartedly that it can be a good measure in an urgent situation. And the question would arise if that person who is providing that service, obviously a physician, yes, here's something that will make you feel better and get you by, that fills an important need. And yet, if that same person, the same patient, let's say, says, well, hey, doctor, thank you very much. I'm feeling a little bit better, but I don't want to stay on this for the rest of my life. What can I do to get back to where I should be and not need this stuff? And if the physician says, well, I don't know, that's not what I do, then there's an unmet need, isn't there? That's exactly the need that we fill. So what I've been saying for a long time here, Joanna, is we fill that needs gap. What you're doing with the healthy means trying to fill that gap. So you go to your physician and he doesn't, It's like that's not what they're trained in. I'm here for the urgent care and to get you by. We'll get you in the ballpark so you can get to work and whatever it is. But if you want to get fixed, oh hey, that's a need that I'm not prepared to fill. And so that's the need that our whole lives are dedicated to filling that need. What is it I need to do to get right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So can we, for our audience to have, a little bit more of a learning and understanding for the role of hormones in their body, and for them to start connecting perhaps to some of their own signs and symptoms that they might be experiencing that could be, the red flags for them being out of balance. And unless they actually know what that is and be able to correlate to what they're experiencing in a day, a lot of people begin to think that that's just normal. It's normal to feel, up and down, moody. It's just, part of life. I hear a lot of clients say, well, isn't that normal? And I go, well, actually, no, it's not. And so can we explain a little bit more to our audience about the role or the job of the hormones in the body and what some of the signs and symptoms are of when they become out of balance?
Yeah, sure. And at the same time, you have to, first, there's a caveat to that. And it's that they don't work independently of any other system in the body. Everything really works together. So we're able to measure hormones, for instance, and people with low hormones could feel really crappy. That's the medical term. And, you're out of sorts, you're moody, you're irritable, you're depressed, sad, blue. Anything that isn't actually what your God-given right is, and that's to be happy. We're supposed to have, we're innately designed and to have a sense of well-being. And that comes to me from being grateful, a mental attitude of gratefulness, and a sense of purpose in life. So let's say you were generally a pretty grateful person, and you also have a purpose in life. Then if you're eating right and getting good sleep and everything, then you should have this sense of well-being. So we could start there. That is what normal is. Normal is so if you're irritable for no reason, or sad and blue and you don't know exactly what. Look, if your mom just died, you're supposed to be sad and blue for a while, I would hope. Then, so anything that isn't a good, strong sense of well-being, like gratitude and purpose and hey, yeah, I'm on the right path here and I'm doing the right thing. Anything less than that, I would think we'd first want to identify it as abnormal. Now, as to what could be influencing that, the hormones certainly play a key role. Cortisol, DHEA, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, and these things, and they can easily be measured in saliva. And then you have your choice. Now, you mentioned stage 1, 2, and 3 adrenal fatigue. Well, they're making a lot of these hormones, but so do a lot of other organs. And they're making the same hormone, not cortisol, but DHEA and progesterone and estrogen and testosterone. Women don't have testes, but they still make some testosterone, right? And men don't have ovaries, but they still make some estrogen. So you see, there's no one particular, or like you mentioned, adrenal fatigue, and I don't really use that model as much as you might, and it's because if the adrenals are not producing high levels of cortisol and DHEA, which is the parent of estrogen and testosterone, there's a reason why. You can't just say anymore that the adrenals are tired. Oh, you've beat them up. Now they might be a little beat up, but it's really all the influences on the adrenals that we need to look at. And so it gets a little bit complex, but there's other physiology involved. The messages coming from the brain. There's the hypothalamus pituitary puts out hormones to tell those adrenals, hey, come on, make some more cortisol, or let's get that DHA up. These are supposed to be in balance, things like that. So we look at all the influences on those poor little adrenal glands who are getting all the blame, and certainly it's okay to support them. They could use a Band-Aid too sometimes, but it's just not as simple as, look, it's your cortisol and DHA are low, therefore your adrenals are tired. Let's just sell you something to boost those adrenals up. You might feel better for about a month because anytime you change something, it's going to make you feel better or worse. You know, sometimes not, but it could make you feel better for a while. But if you don't find what was influencing those hormones, and that could be, you know, again, quite a number of influences, then you're not going to get permanent results. So that's again, and I harp on this, and I apologize because I don't like to be too complex, but it could be the hormones, it could be the immune system, it could be digestion and assimilation, it could be detoxification, it could be things going on with energy production on a cellular level, and it could be your nervous system. Remember, the brain is also the central nervous system, and that can affect the adrenals. So we have the hormones; they're important. You'd like to have nice, high-ish levels of testosterone, for instance. That has a lot to do with your fatigue and sense of well-being and ability to put on muscle and sex drive. That's pretty important for most people. And so, you know, if you know a little bit about hormone metabolism, you know that stress, you know, can sort of lower DHEA because it does put pressure on the adrenals, more or less. And then with low DHA, you could have low testosterone. You could feel really lousy. You could have low estrogen, and you could have low libido, vaginal dryness. Your skin looks old. Your hair's falling. You know, lots of things could be going on symptom-wise. You know, so I know I'm answering your question, sort of, but that's what I've learned over 15 years. 15 years ago, I would have said, oh, that's stage 3 adrenal fatigue. Let's get those adrenals repaired and you'll be fine. I did say that. I mean, that's what I learned 15. But now I'm saying, oh, there's all these factors. And that's why I've coined that phrase, metabolic chaos, you know. And the other reason I say that, to sort of defend myself here, and you know, like if your listeners might be saying, where the heck's he going, you know, it's that people are so individual and unique, and so the same stressors in one person, in two different people. So let's say people had the exact same job, they're born on the same day, they look the same, they have the same boss, they also eat the same food, they're exposed to the same amounts of radiation, or, you know, whatever it is. All this exact same input can produce completely different results. And one person's body might be better able to just handle that stuff, and they're getting along pretty good. Another person is not able to handle it, and their body, because of innate, meaning inborn, weak links, just falls apart. And you know that's true. You have coworkers, and man, people are different. So that's the other reason why I don't like to just go, oh, it's adrenal fatigue. Here's your glandular supplements, which, by the way, we get them from Australian cows for the most part, because you guys have the best cows. And and so you know, there's things you can do to sort of prop up a dysfunctional organ, a dysfunctional cell, a dysfunctional system in the body. You can prop up the entire organism with things that prop people up. But it's again, most of these have temporary, sort of transient success rates, you know. And that's what I learned working with over 10,000 people over a 15-year period, is that they're all unique and individual. So that's why we have this sort of system of, let's look at the hormones, yeah. Let's look at the immune system. Let's look at digestion and detoxification and energy production and things, even the nervous system. Some people are just very, you know, nervous. They're fight flight. That's the nervous system, you know. Other people like me, they're pretty chill, very, very relaxed most of the time, very parasympathetic. Not sympathetic, but parasympathetic. My rest and digest, you know, works really good, you know. And anyway, so
so what I'm hearing there, Reed, is you know, you've said a lot of things there, which
yeah.
are great information for our listeners. You know, you've tuned us back into realizing that there is never any one component of the body that is the cause, because the system is a system of systems and they all work together and they all influence each other. So you can never look at one thing in isolation. You can never look at the hormones as an example in isolation to other things, because we have to understand, for example, what could be affecting the hormones, whether it could be a digestive issue, could it be overloaded of free radicals and an overload of toxins in the body. And so you're making a really valid point there. And this is something that, you know, at Healthy Me Summits, what we're trying to encourage people to do is, rather than look at a, you know, a one-fits-all approach, another thing that you identified is how unique everybody is and how everyone's biochemistry is absolutely unique to themselves. And therefore we can't take this cookie-cutter approach to dealing with depression or anxiety, because everybody is so very different. And I think that, you know, that is two very important key messages there for people to understand, is that, you know, number one, there are multiple influences that could be impacting your mood regulation, your cognitive function, and your overall mental health. And secondly, that there cannot be just, you know, a one approach to dealing with those. So I guess that, you know, leads me into my next question, which is, if we've established that there is an imbalance, and we've established that there's possible, you know, multiple hormonal imbalances going on in the body, what are our options, and what are your top, let's say, top three sort of takeaways for the audience to start focusing on to bringing those things back into balance?
Well, that's top three might be, I think there's 5 things everyone needs to do. And I don't know how to rank them. But maybe I would say diet, certainly. I mean, we all have to eat, you know, so you might start there. And if people want to jot this down, I mean, I think having a pencil and a piece of paper handy would be a good thing. Mm. To summarize the intake, if you will, like what would we look at for causal factors? It's easy to remember what I said, because what I said was hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, and nervous system. Well, that spells hidden, Hidden. And I consider that a lot of our stressors are just hidden to us. And it just, also, I like acronyms because it makes an old guy like me, it's easy to remember. Hidden spells hidden, hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, and nervous system. Now, there's other systems, but those 6 are really critical. I found in my 15 years and 10,000 people, man, if you can just sort of get a view, a little measurement of this, a little measurement of that, we get this constellation of data, plus how you're presenting the person, the unique individual, how they're feeling, what they don't like that's going on, that they're not happy with, and things. And so that's our assessment process. Then the behavior process begins. Because remember, we're not going to just patch or Band-Aid, not for long. You know, it's totally fine to do some symptom relief if you are so depressed, can't get out of bed. You know, you definitely want to see a physician and get, you know, something to get you out of bed and get you back to work, so that we can work with you. You know, you got to get in the ballpark and on the field a little bit so we can play. You know, and so, but then the behavior. It isn't just going to be take these supplements or here's your, and you could say, well, diet and exercise. You need more. Yeah, we all need more diet and exercise, or better diets and exercise, but there are only a couple of the things. So again, here's another acronym for you. It's DRESS, and I'll give you some tips on the diet part. But it's diet. D is diet. R is rest. E is very obviously exercise, right? Now, the 2 S's is stress reduction is one, and then supplements. So let me go through it again. DRESS, diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplements. And what I've done is absolutely everything that isn't diet, rest, exercise, or supplements goes under stress reduction. It's something that's in there, whether it be you have parasites, bacteria, funguses, overgrowth, viruses and things, and we have them. Mm-hmm. Or whether it be food sensitivities. Look, tomatoes works great for your mom and your brother, but tomatoes doesn't work well for you. They actually create inflammation. There are tests for this. or you can do elimination diets and things. But what I'm getting is stress reduction is where we do the most lab work. What's stressing you? What's it broken down in your body? So going back to DRESS, diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplements. On the diet, here's something you could take home with you. If you, let's say everything else was normal, normal. If your breakfast diet, you're going to fine tune your diet. You can find the right, we call them ancestral diets now. I'm happy with that. That's fine. The right ancestral diet for you is one that has the right protein, fat, and complex carbohydrates, which are the good carbohydrates, mostly vegetation, maybe a little bit of fruit or something. But so protein, fat, carbohydrate is a fuel mixture. There's ratios involved. You could start with 100% protein, add in a little fat, and then some carbs. You'd have a certain mixture. You could start the other way around. You could start with 100% carbohydrates and then add in some fat and some protein. But you know, ancestrally, you probably should have an idea that you're either a protein type or, you know, some form of protein type or something. Just pretend, bear with me. And you're going to fine tune that. Now, I will tell you exactly how to fine tune it right now if you want to jot this down. And that is 2 hours after meal, you should be satisfied. Satiation is a very inborn thing. You'll know if that meal satisfied you. You're not craving anything. Man, that meal did the trick. You're not still hungry, you know, so you should have a sense of satiation. Satiety is the quality. An hour and a half or 2 hours after eating, you're still satisfied. It was a good breakfast because it had the right amount of protein and fats and carbohydrate. The mixture was good. I've had people completely turn their life around by adding more protein to their breakfast, for instance. And so now it needs to be the right protein. You know, we can select which proteins, which fats, which carbs. Do that later. the foods that you're sensitive to, they got to go. But anyway, just take what I'm saying here. So satiety is the first thing that you want to and you can 2 hours after you eat, go, no, man, I'm craving. Something was really missing from that meal. No, I'm not satisfied one bit. I'm still hungry. Well, then you're going to go the next morning to your breakfast and go, I'm going to add in more. Maybe I'm at 80% protein, 10% fat, 10% complex carbohydrates. Wherever it is, you can dial it in. It's like a radio dial, and you're going to dial it right in. You know, sometimes you go past, and then you come back to where the station's the loudest. You know, you can sort of over dial it towards protein or carbs, whichever way you're going, and then dial it back, and you can dial it in. But it's not just satiety. There's two other major factors. One of them is energy. Energy is just, you got to fuel. Why are you even eating? You're eating because you need mental and physical energy to do something. We're meant to produce, even if it's just go reproduce. You know, that's production, right? So you've got something you need to do, work and things like that. You know, you want to be productive, live out your purpose in life. You need one. And then, so you need enough energy to, so again, 2 hours after eating, you should say, my energy's solid. It's not nervous energy with fatigue underneath or anything. It's just actual salt. Man, that was good fuel. That was good fuel. Again, go back to the mixture the next day, alter it a little bit. If you got the satiety part down, work on the energy part. You should have enough energy after 2 hours after eating, if you ate enough, if you ate a big enough meal, to get another hour, hour and a half maybe out of your meal. So meals should last us, you know, depends how much you eat and different things, but they should last you 3, 4, even 5 hours sometimes. And so satiety and then energy, solid square energy. Now the third item fits right in with your topic because it's critical that you have a sense of well-being. And believe it or not, the wrong meal, man, if you're just not getting enough protein or if you're over consuming poor quality carbohydrates, things like that, you can't have a sense of, well, you're going to feel crappy. You're going to be irritable. Again, the cravings can start to slip in here, things like that, but you're going to feel irritable. And it's not because someone cut you off in traffic or your boss yelled at you. It's for no reason. And that's wrong. That is not normal. If you're walking around irritable or cranky or even just moody, sad, those are not normal. Again, unless there's some immediate influence, like your mom died, feel sad. Someone killed your cat, I'd be sad too. I might also be angry, but I'm just getting at like it's for no. If you feel sad or irritable for no reason, you got to go back to breakfast. You got to, and you're doing this 2 hours after you eat. So those three things: satiety, and energy, and sense of well-being, are critical observations that you can make about yourself, and no one's going to make it better than you, and you can just jot it down. Okay, breakfast. Okay, now after lunch, same thing. If you're sleepy, if you're tired, you just don't have that energy, or oh man, I carved out on that, whatever it might be. So you can start to judge your meals. So when it comes to DRESS, you can totally customize your own diet. I've trained a couple thousand people around the world to work with people on that. And by the way, we do a little bit of testing. We can tell if you're a protein type or a carb type, or so somewhere in between. We can get you to dial that in. And then on the rest, people need to go to bed on time and get a good night's sleep. Exercise, you can't be healthy if you don't exercise. It's impossible to be your best if you're not doing good, strong exercise regularly. And then, of course, stress reduction. Again, that opens up the whole world of all the things that we do, the things we look at to see inside, what's out of balance and stressed out and dysfunctional. And then supplements, I don't have a line of supplements. I don't care what people buy, but I know a few things about them and the ingredients and what could support you immediately. Again, for that kind of relief care, which we said was okay. But then long term, what's missing from my food? Food is such poor quality today, especially here. It's all farmed on. There's no nutrients in it hardly. It just fills you up, but it's pretty much empty. So you need to supplement with the vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients and essential fatty acids, amino acids and things. And then you can also temporarily prop someone up. Again, we talked about maybe stimulating the immune system, or some other system that you want to just prop up for right now. And then again, just sort of general support for organs like the adrenals or the sex organs or the brain. There's things you can play with there that are very, very, very helpful. So that's my plan. By the way, your listeners, if they want, could get my little ebook I wrote on it. Would you like me to give that away to everybody?
That would be amazing. I'm sure everybody would be keen to get their hands on that for sure.
Well, this is I don't know if this is American ingenuity. I'm a Canadian, by the way, living in the United States. But if people wanted to jot down a phone number and text "healthy me," text the word "healthy me," one word, like all together. Text "healthy me," one word, to the number is 802-467-0057. Now, I know you guys are in Australia, and they might not get through, but if they did that, they would get that document I'm talking about. If you text "healthy me" to that number, 802-457-0057, 467-0057, I think it's on the board behind me, they would get that document. And otherwise, I'll give it to you, and you can send it out to everybody who wants a copy. It's my Dress for Health Success ebook, and it just kind of talks about that dress, which is completely natural. There's nothing to buy. It's just here's a book on that might be helpful to you.
Reed, that is information that I would literally just call gold. It really is. It's you. In the last 5 minutes, you've just literally told someone how to dress themselves properly, which, excuse the pun, is one of the most important things we could do in life, using that acronym and remembering. And, a couple of other things just to synthesize what you've said, which I think is just so important for our audience, is one of the key messages you've shared with us is how powerful it is to listen to the biofeedback that your body's giving us. And
that's it.
I think that that's probably an area where people are not tuned into the body, not listening to the feedback, invariably when people eat, it's either on the run or they're rushed, or they eat and they go straight into another meeting, and they're not present to how their body actually feels 20, 30 minutes or even up to an hour after they've eaten. And, the body's feedback just kind of happens, and they just carry on with their day without really tuning in to listening to what that feedback is and what it could actually be telling them. And, what I'm hearing you say is that depending on what we eat and the ratio of those protein, fats, and carbs and the quality of the protein, fats, and carb, give the body either what it needs or too much or too little of what it needs, and it will tell you so, if only we could learn how to listen. And
yeah, you got it.
I think that's a really important message there, because what we're also showing our viewers is that you can be accountable and you actually can empower yourself to make changes for yourself just by listening to what your body is telling you. If those three key markers, energy, if it's, depleted after eating when it should actually be elevated, then that's one red flag. If your mood starts to deteriorate rather than elevate, that's another red flag. And if you don't feel satisfied, if you have a craving, 20 minutes after a meal, you're still craving something else because you're kind of full but still hungry, that kind of feeling, which, I remember having myself during the process of fine-tuning what my ratio of protein, fats, and carbs are. And I think that, some people might be listening to this and think, oh, that's too simple. But people forget sometimes it's in the simplicity that we get the greatest results. And if we can just come back to doing things that are small little steps, we can actually get some really big results and outcomes. So I want to thank you for synthesizing such great information into real practical, actionable items for people to go away and practice. And if they can remember those two acronyms, hidden and dress, then just those two things alone, I hope that they've got a pen and paper out, as you said, and have written those things down, because they are really, really important things. And I'm 100% with you there, Reed. For all the people that I have coached over the years, what you've just shared have been the fundamental principles that have created such a massive shift in people's health and wellness. So thank you so much.
Very well said. Fantastic. One last final little story. And it goes back to what you said in the beginning that is so important. People don't know what great health feels like anymore. The only people who get out of bed and jump up and down on it and crow like a rooster anymore are less than 5 years old. After that, we're all stressed out, and that's how it should be every day. You get up, you crow like a rooster, and you get on with your day. We're designed for that. And I had a real long time ago, early client, lovely woman who went on my program as I was working with her, and she called me after just a few days and said, something's wrong. I don't know this is working for me. I said, well, what is it? And she goes, I don't know. There's something going on. I've been getting up and eating the breakfast and the supplements and things like that, and then just by the time I get to work, I've got so much energy. I don't know what to do with it. And I said, and she thought that was something's wrong. And that was exactly what she said. And I went, I go, well, believe it or not, you got to go do something with that energy, and that'll take. But anyway, you get the point. And I've got so many little anecdotes like that where people didn't remember what good felt like, and it was weird to them.
I think it's a problem that a lot of people would like to have.
Yeah. Very good then.
To have more energy like that. Reed, just before you go, can you just let us know where people might be able to connect with you and the diagnostics that you do, for them to, if anyone out there is interested or feels resonant to what you've said, and feels like, that would be a good place for them to start in terms of just understanding what their baseline profile for their various hormones and various other things going on in those other systems that we've mentioned. How could they pursue that?
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much for the opportunity to share. My website is functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com, and people could go there Functional Diagnostic Nutrition.com. It's spelled the way it sounds. It's pretty simple. It's a phrase that I coined to describe what we do, which is pretty unique. We've sort of put it all together in these unique packages anyway. But you're doing the same thing, Joanna. You're coaching people up on reducing all the stressors and doing all the things it takes to build your innate God-given right to be healthy. Build that up. And so I'm with you 100%, as I said, support you any way I can.
Well,
and your listeners, of course.
Thank you, Reed. I might even have to invite you back for another chat, because I think you really are the man to speak to in regards to parasites. And I think that it's parasites and gut bacteria and various fungus infections. I don't think people truly understand the real connection between those various overgrowths and infections and how they affect our neurological function. So we might just have to have a separate conversation at another time on those subjects.
Bring me back. I'm happy to do it, Joanna.
Fantastic. Reed, one more question just before you go. We're asking this of all of our speakers, and that is just to share with us an empowering affirmation of what your I am statement might be, to encourage our listeners to perhaps create one for themselves to empower themselves on their path.
I am grateful. I am so grateful for the blessings, for this life and the opportunities I have, and to fulfill my purpose that I feel called to have. I don't have to think about what my purpose is. It's just there. So I'm happy for that. I'm very grateful.
Reed, we're very grateful that you've made the time to spend with us and share with us your knowledge and empower our listeners to take greater accountability and self-care of themselves. So thank you so very much for your time. And I really look forward to connecting with you again in the future.
I'll be counting on it.
Thanks, Reed.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye now.